Like other podcasts, it started off that way. A few giggles, teasing, and basketball talk. But then came the moment when the air shifts, eyes dart, and one error can ignite an inferno. When Angel Reese's name was brought up, four-time NBA champion Shaquille O'Neal, a great personality on and off the court, could feel the shift. Before he sat down with Adam Lefkoe and Dwight Howard, everything had been going smoothly. However, a simple comment can swiftly turn into a major topic in today's media environment, and that was something Shaq knew. Lefkoe's humorous comment, "That's Shaq's girl," made the big figure the center of attention. Shaq drew closer now, his tone suddenly harsh. "Take caution. Take care. Sure. Hey, be careful." It was not loud, but it rang through the room. It was a quick, calculated shift in course. He wasn't laughing, he wasn't enjoying himself. Before it ever had a chance to establish itself, it started fixing damage. Howard noticed the shift, nodded in agreement, and remarked, "But he's right? I should have said something different." It was so subtle that casual listeners almost missed it, but to those who were paying attention, there was Shaq breaking hard. But to understand why that moment was important, you must look back. Shaq and Angel Reese weren't the first couple to be in the spotlight together. When Shaq appeared on Reese's podcast, Unapologetically Angel, a few months earlier, what was supposed to be a lighthearted conversation quickly took a different tone. Shaq once made a remark about Reese's fashion choices, implying that her marketability might increase if she dunked more often. It was the perfect illustration of a historic symbol trying to compete in the field of contemporary marketing. But the reaction was anything but positive. Even though Reese kept her composure, it was hard to disregard the nervousness. Social media found it within a few hours. Screenshots, videos, and reviews were common across platforms. Shaq, formerly the charming giant with endless charisma, was now in the middle of a storm. His comments were attacked for being offensive, inappropriate, and outdated. Clearly, he had failed to live up to the man who took immense pride in his charisma and timing. But Shaq didn't give up, not in the way they expected. Instead, he took on the matter head-on. In a later podcast appearance, he analyzed the incident in a tough and honest manner. "You think that what you did to Angel wasn't intentional? Act quickly. I know exactly what I'm doing. I was expecting your response. I expected it to explode. And that is the plan. That was the strategy that made the podcast go viral. That's what we do. We click, move the needle, and obtain eyes." Even though it left a terrible taste, it provided insight into how the machine works, how controversy can be turned into revenue, and how even faults can be leveraged to attract attention. While some praised the transparency, others claimed it made it more difficult to discern between genuine mentoring and deliberate abuse. This is why his response in the most recent episode felt so different. There was no room for doubt this time. No smirk or wink, just a hard pivot, like a seasoned quarterback making an audible at the line of scrimmage. Shaq didn't want the conversation to go in a different direction. Never again. Not with Reese's name on the line. The spotlight was no longer solely on him. It concerned her, and how easily a young woman's reputation could be damaged for the sake of a joke or a headline. Angel Reese is one of the WNBA's most intriguing rising players. Her brilliance is undeniable, and her confidence is unmatched. She attracts attention with her special blend of skill and presence. But that attentiveness is accompanied by a magnifying glass, one that is constantly searching for any flaw, mistake, or justification to discredit her. Shaq knows what it's like to be the center of attention. He's been there, thrived in it. It's possible that he has also discovered how challenging it can be, especially for someone who is just learning how to use it. That was why his last move felt strange, intentional, protective, and akin to a big brother stepping in before things spiral out of control. When Shaq redirected the conversation and closed the comment, he wasn't just trying to seem good. He was shielding Reese from yet another unnecessary clamor. The moment was silent, but it said a lot. Shaquille O'Neal may have evolved in this way. Not only the dunking, domineering, joke-cracking icon, but the man learning how to be there for the next generation. There is a certain raw and authentic element to witnessing a prominent figure evolve in real time, particularly when they are willing to speak up about their mistakes, even if they are covered in bluster. Ree hasn't said anything noteworthy about the incident. She worked hard and remained calm, exhibiting the poise that attracts the attention of the media and her supporters. But she certainly felt the effect of what she had spoken before. The internet undoubtedly made sure she saw every response. These days, mentoring is more than just going to games or giving advice. It all boils down to knowing when to defend, when to speak, and when to remain silent. And during that brief visit on the show, Shaq decided to put protection ahead of performance and virality, just instinct. Because when you remove the bright lights and studio setups, they are still real people with real reputations and consequences. For someone like Rhee, who is still figuring herself out in a league that hasn't often given its young stars a clean landing, every false statement hurts, and every skewed headline costs. And for Shaq, who has seen firsthand how easily things can spiral out of control, it was time to step in and say, "No, not this time." That has a powerful and unusual quality. Sometimes it's best to steer clear of pyrotechnics altogether in a culture that is obsessed with sensationalism and shock value. Shaq didn't need to become viral this time. He only needed to act morally, and despite all the glitz and controversy of his career, that one act may now disclose more about him than anything else. In reality, the relationship between legends and up-and-coming talents is seldom simple. There is pressure, admiration, and sometimes even conflict. The best of these partnerships, however, are built on respect. And Shaq showed that respect in real time, in spite of all his past mistakes. He did more than just protect Rhee from the repercussions. He made the audience understand that there are limits to what you can and cannot do, that jokes have repercussions, and that sometimes being a leader means keeping your mouth shut rather than attempting to attract attention. That IT teaches self-control, maturity, and the responsibility that comes with influence, because people are watching all the time. That is, when you're Shaquille O'Neal. Additionally, they observe something unusual throughout that podcast period. A man who is learning how to move differently, speak compassionately, and stand up for someone who is still struggling, not just a former MVP or media mogul. However, there are other characters in this story besides Shaq and Angel Reese. It concerns a broader cultural shift that is currently taking place. Sports media has traditionally been dominated by narratives intended to stir the pot, elicit outrage, and generate clicks. However, Reese and other young athletes are more than just athletes. They are brands, voices, and emblems. Their reputation can be improved or harmed by the comments made by their forebears. And when celebrities like Shaq make such remarks, it becomes even more significant. Because of this, it is extremely meaningful when someone in his position shows restraint. It also illustrates how mentorship has changed over time. It is no longer sufficient to pull someone aside in the locker room and offer them advice behind closed doors. Mentoring occurs in front of cameras, on social media, and in the fleeting decisions made during live recordings these days. Every action is clear. Each and every word is recorded. This can lead to a distortion of interaction. Furthermore, the traditional whatever for laughs approach is less effective in this high-stakes media landscape. Younger people are watching and aren't afraid to bring it up. Rhee values these moments more than most people realize. She is more than simply a rising talent in the WNBA. She is a young woman trying to strike a balance between her notoriety, expectations, and the public's unceasing attention. There is pressure to perform, to represent, and to remain calm in the face of unrelenting criticism. And her future may depend on having someone like Shaq on her side, especially if he chooses to protect rather than provoke. She is aware that she is not alone in the circumstance, as some of the most well-known figures in the industry still value having someone's back. In reality, though, one sensible choice does not erase the past. Once trust has been eroded, it takes time to rebuild. It can be recovered, though, especially when behavior starts to align with intention. For those who were paying attention, Shaq's shift in direction could have seemed unimportant, even unmemorable, to the untrained eye, but it was a premeditated turn. It was a lesson that progress isn't always evident. Sometimes it can be found in the silence, when someone makes the conscious decision to improve without seeking recognition.